Kלים Perik Ches Mishnah Yud. Maga Tamei Meis, Shoy Oichlen Umashkin the Soich Piv. A Tamei Meis is a person who became Tomei through a mace. So the Tamei Meis himself is an Avatoma. A Maga Tamei Meis is somebody who touched this man who's an Avatoma. Therefore the Maga Tamei Meis is a man who's a Rishon L'Tumah. Shoy Oichlen Umashkin and Soich Piv. Inside his mouth there's Oichlin and Mashkin. So of course the Oichlin and Mashkin inside his mouth become Tomei because they've touched him. Hichinis roishoy la'avir hatanur tohar. He then places his head with the Oichlin and Mashkin inside his mouth into the toich of a tanur tohar. Something I wouldn't recommend, especially if the oven is lit. He puts his head into the Avra Tanur. It says the Mishnah, Tim Uhu. The mashkin in his mouth are now Metame the Tanur. Let's analyze this. He himself, although he's Tomei, he himself is not able to be Metame the Tanur because he's a Rishon. And the Rishon can't be Metame a Kli Cheres. A Kli Cheres can only be Mekabel Tumah from an Ava Tumah like a Sheret. So he is not able to be Metame the Tanur. The oichlin in his mouth are a sheni l'tumah. They definitely are not able to be Metame the Tanur. In fact, the oichlin here is, excuse the pun, they are a bit of a red herring. It's, as Bartanura says, kadi nosva. It's the mashkin. Mashkin, although midaraisa, the mashkin are a sheni and therefore not able to be Mekabel, to be Metame the Tanur, there's two chumras drabonon in the case of mashkin which allow this din of the Mishnah that the mashkin are able to be Metame the Tanur. Din number one, mashkin don't become a sheni. When a rishon touches mashkin, then the mashkin become a rishon as well. So the mashkin are actually a rishon l'tumah. Midrabanon. Under the normal rules, a Rishon L'Tumah is not able to be Metame a Kli Cheres. As we said before, a Kli Cheres can only be Mikabel Tumah from an Ava Tumah. The second Chumah Drabanon is that Mashkin, which are a Rishon, are able to be Metame Kelim. And the Kli actually gets a din of a Sheni, Midrabanon. So the mashkin in the Rishon's mouth are able to be Metame the Tanur, although the man himself, the Rishon himself, from whom the mashkin got the Tumah, was not himself able to be Metame the Tanur. So the mashkin midrabanon are Metame the Tanur. Another point we have to know here, we had before that in the Mishnah, in Perik Ches Mishnah, in this Perik, Mishnah Hey, it's something which is balua inside the Baal Chaim. If a person swallows a tummy, the Mishnah actually was talking about the chicken that swallows a sheretz. When something is balua, it is not able to be metame. That din balua applies only when it's inside the body. Being inside the mouth is not called a din of balua. Therefore, we don't have the heta, the tara, which Mishnah Hey was talking about. And the Mishnah carries on. The tahar, now comes the reverse. The tahar, mashkin, man is tahar, and inside his mouth. Mashkin, and again we don't have the hatzalah of balua because it's not inside his stomach. Now the tanur is tomei. It's a Kli Cheres, and the Kli Cheres has a din of a rishon l'tumah. And he puts his head into the tanur. Here it's simple. The oichlin and the mashkin are now actually, although they are inside his mouth, but they are also at the same time inside the tunnel. His body does not provide enough of a tumor proofing, of a protection. The only thing that can provide, for instance, would be something like Summit Postel. Summit Postel applies to Kelim, not to a person. Therefore, there's nothing that stops, that is matzel, the Oichlin and Mashkin, from being Mekabel Tumah from the Tanur. That's why the Mishnah says, Nitmu, they become Tomei because they are in the Toich of the Kli Cheres. The second part of the Mishnah. Again, the second part of the Mishnah is there are many ways to learn this Mishnah. We'll do the most simple pshat of the Mishnah, which is the Perish of the Rav and the Rash and the Rosh. A man is eating a dry fig with yodayim mesuavos, with hands that are tomei. Midoraisa, one can't split a person's guf and say this part of the guf is tomei and this part is toer. If a person becomes tomei, then all of him becomes tomei. The Rabbanon instituted tumas yodayim. There are many tumas which midoraisa are not able to be metamei odom. For instance, the mashkin we mentioned before, the mashkin which are rishon, are not able to be metamei odom. However, if they touch the hands, then just the hands become a sheni l'tumah. The hands become what's called yodayim mesuavos. These hands are a sheni l'tumah. What can they do with their tumah? Of course, they can make, in the case of tumah v'kodshim, they can make a shlishi because they are a sheni. But another chumrah we have in mashkim is that the yodayim, which are a sheni, can actually make mashkim into a rishon. So it reverses. The yodayim are a sheni. When they touch mashkim, the mashkim flip back and they become a rishon. A man is eating dried figs with hands which are a sheni. So of course, hands which are a sheni can only be metame mashkim. They can't be metame oichlim shel chulin. So at the moment, so far, the story is fine. His hands are tomei, and the fig that he's eating remains toher. But the story carries on. Hichnis yodoi l'seich piv l'teres atzroy. While he's eating the dried figs, he then sticks his finger into his hand, into his fingers, into his mouth, to pull something out, to pull out a little pebble, a little stone from his mouth. What's happened now? His fingers have now touched the saliva inside his mouth. Now, if the saliva is considered to have a din of mashke, then his hands will be metame the saliva. The saliva becomes a rishon. And once the saliva is a rishon, it's then able to be metame the devela that he's eating and make it into a sheni. So his hands aren't metame the devela direct, they're metame the mashke, which is metame the devela. And if we're dealing with a man who's oichel chulov patara, then eating a devela, which is a sheni, is a problem. But the question here in this Mishnah is the roik in his mouth considered to be a mashke, so that it becomes a rishon and thus able to be metame the devela? Remeir says yes. Remeir metame says the roik inside the person's mouth is a mashke. Therefore, the mashke becomes metame the devela. Rabbi Huda Matayr, he says that roik inside the mouth is not a mashke. Once it leaves the mouth, yes, but not once it's inside the mouth. Rabbi Yossi Omer says it depends. Im hofach tomei, im loy hofach tor. Just roik, saliva lying in the mouth, is not a mashke. But once it's been turned around in the mouth, it's moved from one part of the mouth to another part of the mouth, then it's been ne'ekar, now becomes a separate entity from the mouth and is now considered to be a mashke. Says the Mishnah, a person has got a coin in his mouth. Rabbi Yossi Omer imlit smo'ei tomei. Even though Rabbi Yossi just said before that roik in the mouth depends whether it was hafach or loy hafach, if a person puts a coin in his mouth, and they used to do this in those days, if a person was thirsty, in order to create saliva, to make his mouth a little bit wetter, so he shouldn't feel so thirsty, he used to put a coin in the mouth. Then even if loy hafach, even if the saliva hasn't actually moved from place A to place B, the fact this was his intention to create roik, then the roik, even in loy hafach, is considered to be a mashke, and of course is able to be metame the devela. By the way, putting a coin in your mouth is brought in Shulchan Aruch as the first Israel brings Yeridei Kuf Tes Zayin Sifei as a sakona